is upon you. The Decapolis is being invaded by our old enemies, the Tillian Republic. They really think that they own the Grey River. That's this one running down here. And they have made a couple of attempts on Damascus. They're doing it again. Here in the year 2956, we had a pretty rough year on the barbarian dice rolls. Our leader died of old age last year. At least that's what the people that poisoned him have to say about it. And we rolled a whopping 5 raids. Everybody's on the table. Everybody wants some. So the Machans, we were able to buy them off with 1,200 credits. They're cheap. The Wheelians, we were able to hire as paid allies for 6,000 credits. And somehow we were able to buy a mercenary company from the Tillian Republic that was about the same size as the force that we're going to have to do battle with today. So I just, look, because these two forces are evenly matched, I put this one against this one, and then I dumped in this other. We now have like an almost 2-to-1 ratio here. They got way more artillery. They've got like more tanks and everything. So I just said, look, I'm not going to track any of this stuff. I'm just going to assume that the 2-to-1 guys win. I could probably roll some dice. Oh, well, maybe there's a 10% chance that I really need to start. I really need to start thinking about this before I shoot my darn fool mouth off. So that was actually a route. Those paid allies didn't do me a whole lot of good. They were able to slow the Tillian push, but these guys won. I think the fact that the Tillians and the Wheelians here just don't get along so well, they probably were defending Katha. So let's say that these guys were able to break through the cordon and they're attacking Katha. Oh man, who could have predicted this? Well, this is why we roll the dice. This is why we let them decide. 2956 is going to be even more interesting than I expected. So here's what I'm going to do. I need to figure out what the casualties were, how much is left over for that push on Katha, and I'm going to have to pay to rally my militia. As you can see, I have got a total of 9 dice here, and we're going to roll for the infantry first, right? So this is, we'll call it a 1 in 3 chance. 1s and 2s are going to be casualties who are not available for the push. And not a bad roll there. Okay. So the attack on Katha is going to be 5 infantry after we spent 15,000 credits. I want to talk to the manager. I feel like the service I got was not good. There's no tip, by the way. Like forget 18%. There is no tip. What about the artillery? How many of those survived? Again, 1s and 2s mean you're gone. So 2 artillery, and likewise, we've got 3 tanks. And I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So 5 infantry plus 2 artillery plus, I'm going to say that they brought 2 heavy tanks. See, 1, 2, and 1 light tank. And so the only thing that survived is 1 unit of heavy tanks. Now, when I say survived, I just mean that's all that's going to be fit for the attack on Katha. So I got to do a second battle here, and that's going to be a real treat. But let me deal with the Tillian attack on Damascus first, because that's the one I was prepared to talk about today. Here's me. Oh, there's only 1 in 10 chance that I have to worry about this other battle. We plan. God laughs. Hey, he doesn't give us any battles that we're not capable of fighting, right? And the ones that we think are the hardest, he's sending them to us because we're his best warrior, right? As the saying goes. So what I'm going to do here is I've got 5 infantry for them, and I've got 6 infantry for me. So if you count the dice here, see there's red for me, and then force blue is 5. So I'm going to roll these. We're going to use Scrud. Bear in mind, I've got 2 artillery. He's got 2 artillery. Oh, I have electronic countermeasures. I've got counter battery fire. So that's going to negate 1 of his artillery. He's going to get 1 artillery. I'm going to get 2. So this will be +1 to the high die. And then I get +1 to the high, but I get it twice. And then he's got 2 tanks. I've got 2 tanks. Those are a bit of a wash. We'll talk about what happens there in just a moment. So I'm going to roll these, and I'm going to line them up from highest to lowest. But 2 of my dice have +1, and 1 of his die has +1. And we'll call that a 2. So if we line these up from high to low, I'm going to win the top battle. This is not a great roll for him. So that's a 5 versus a 6. He gets a +1, and he doesn't get a +1 anymore. And as a result of this combat, are there any combats that he wins? No. So we'll figure out. The one thing that I don't like about this scrud is there's no real opportunity for wide swings because you're going highest to lowest. How do you figure out who like the actual casualties are? And I think the answer to that is when you do your lineup like this is the first week of fighting, and I was able to win 1, 2, 3 battles. So the fact that I was able to win 3 battles means I'm going to negate his artillery. So we're going to fight a second round. But if I roll these dice like this again, if I have a differential of, well, let's see. So that's differential 1. If the differential is 2, that means the other die is eliminated. And of course, the extra die for me just means I have a much better chance of getting that excess. So this is what I'm talking about here. My troops are going to get obliterated. This is a terrible roll. Now, fortunately for me, I have a +1 to my 2 highest dice. But this 2-2-1 is the bad news bears, because what it means is he's won here. Okay, I got a 5 and a 5, and he got a 6 and a 6. So he wins these 2 battles. 2 battles to him. This one is a 3rd battle to him. There's no difference. But notice that these are all differential of 1. So he just pushes us back. Here we've got 2 differentials of 2. So I'm going to remove 2 of my dice. I took 2 casualties. And now I roll the dice again. And I still have, because I've got the counter battery fire, now he's going to get both of his artillery. So now he gets +2 to both of his. But I'm down to just 1 artillery. Right, so he gets 2, and I get 1 bonus. So this is going to be a 6 and a 5, and this will be a 6 and a 5. So we're tied, and then he's going to win by 2. So this will be another casualty for me, and then he's going to win by 2. So that's another casualty. And he's just slowly overwhelming all of my forces. Now, I forgot I have air superiority, so I probably should have factored that in as a +2 to my highest die, which might have made a difference, but it's too late for that now. I guess I tasked the air superiority for supporting my allies who failed so badly on that 0-2 roll, and they're going to be needed for the protection of Katha. I will roll this again, but it looks like my army of Damascus is going to be destroyed. So this time, I have no bonuses, and he's got +1 to his highest dice. So he gets a 6. Oh no, so he gets a 7, and he's going to get a 7 and a 6, and he's going to destroy my army, and he's going to take Damascus. So we'll write that here. Damascus is fallen. And then on the other side of the table, over here at Katha, I'm going to have to spend a little bit of money. Remember when you call up your reserves. Now, I've already paid a lot of money for these reserves. But he is going to be able to attack Katha with, as we said, a total of 5 infantry, 2 artillery, and 1 heavy tank. So we're going to use the blue dice for him again. And I am going to call up my reserves. I've got 5 units. Well, wait a minute. Katha only has 4 units. So I'm only going to be able to summon 3 units of professionals for the first round. The way old Jim Webster recommends, you've got your reserve forces here, your militia, are divided into 2. I've got an expeditionary company supported by the air support. And I'm going to buy 3 of those guys, and then they're protecting the outer ring of the city. My junk militia is going to be, not my junk militia, but the Volkstrom, the boys and old men and invalids and veterans who we shamefully didn't take care of at the VA, relatable. They're the ones that are called up in a last desperate attempt to defend the inner city of Katha. But we're not there yet. Where we are is we've got 5 regular troops 5 companies attacking 3 companies. And these guys have artillery support and heavy tanks. So their first 3 dice are all going to be at +1. The extra 2 dice don't get matched up. They're just an example of they're increasing the odds that their high dice really are higher. Rolling them bones, and it's not looking good. We get a +1, so that's just a simple victory. We get a +1 to the second die, so that's going to be a defeat in detail. And then a +1 to this die is a 4-2. That is another defeat in detail. So we roll for the second round of attacks, and we're going to lose the last of our militia. Then we get to the inner ring, where it's going to be 5-on-5, but all of my red dice now are at -1. All of the blue dice, because they're exhausted, this is now, they've been on campaign for a long time. They have suffered casualties. They don't appear in this little mock-up, but they've been fighting for several months consistently. So it's just going to be -1 to the 5 blue dice, which belong to me. So this becomes a really bad roll. I said mine are the blue dice, right? So that's going to be line them up and even, oh, man. All right. So all of my dice are at -1. That means we have a 4, 4. These are both eliminated. These are both simply defeated, and this is also simply defeated. So we roll again, and my militia, seeing their guys are gone, are again going to be at -1 to their rolls. So this is a 5 versus this was a 6. 5 versus a 6. So we lost that one. This is a 5 versus a 2. So that's a destruction. And a 4 versus a 1. So we have just 1 round left to go. And if this blue die can roll a 6, which it doesn't, so we are completely defeated. And now the Tillian Republic has captured 2 of our cities. Why am I going through this whole exercise? What kind of lessons can we learn? If you're doing a Bronstein in a role-playing game in any kind of genre there is, could be fantasy, could be Wild West, could be whatever. If you want to be able to get through large battles in 5 minutes because your turns are going to be about 15, 20 minutes long, this is a valid approach to take. Figure out what your standard unit is and assign a D6 to each unit. If some units are really good, I may say, hey, you know what? My red army has a phenomenal elite unit. Oh, and so does the blue. So this is a red die and this is a blue die, but those both get +2. So this becomes an 8, and it's going to be the master of the game. The elite unit didn't do so hot. So if we line this up with the blue, it's going to be he's going to be way down here at the end. 6-2-1, and he may match up against a unit, a normal unit, that really put paid to him. Well, I'm going to line him up like so. So that's going to be a 5-4-4. And the interesting thing about this process now, so no, he got beat. At +2 to 4, that's a wash, right? So even though this is a standard unit, he was able to be stonewalled by that unit. And as you can see, with a +2, we have an elimination over there, right? So some interesting possibilities with this simple combat resolution using dice. We did this a few episodes ago, maybe a month or so ago, and it was a little too complicated for me to juggle both of these together. But you could sit down with your friends and put this together. It would be really, really simple. And it might be a lot better than, playing out a full chainmail game. There's all kinds of ways. If you're doing one of those Matrix style games where people have argued their way into bonuses, they're arguing their way into these D6 bonuses, and it streamlines the process greatly. So the real issue we have right now is that Katha and Damascus have fallen, and the forces are going to move on Dion. Oh, I forgot air support again. I don't know if that would have made a difference, but this is going to be the issue in 2957. So 2957, assault on Dion. And that may be what they were hoping to do that whole time. They're like, they want to, maybe they attack Rafana too. Maybe the Tillians have decided that everything on the eastern side of the map. But the problem that we face now, assault, let me just make a note of this. Tillian assault. And this is where you can start to deviate from the rules as written. This Hellfire and the Fall of Empire. we decided that, a multi-year war campaign is possible. We're getting a little off the beaten path when we roll for our invasions. The first thing I'm going to have to do is buy a military to try to retake Katha, right? Or defend Dion. And if I can defend Dion, then in 2958, maybe I can retake Katha. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Who's to say? It depends on who else rates. Maybe the Grey Horde comes in and we have a three-way war over here on the right side. Maybe I have to pay them to do that. But again, with 66,000 killer credits and no real army to speak of, that's gonna be rough, man. So assault on Dion, and this was the idea, is that you start to do a little bit of like two-fisted role playing here for what those guys are up to. I lied. I don't have 66,000 killer credits in my bankroll. I haven't paid for my militia yet. It cost me 1,500 for all 4 of the home defense and 3,000 for each for the year. You gotta pay for them for the year. This is only for the month. Now I'm not gonna worry about the raising the cost. That's rolled into the annual cost. So you take a look at this, man, and that's did I even do that right? There's only 7. There should have been 3 and 4, right? So that would have been 9,000 and 6,000. That would have been 15,000 for the militia, which I really didn't want to spend, but that 15,000 takes me down to just 51,095 killer credits. And with that little cash on hand, 2957 could very well be the end of the Decapolitan experiment. That we were able to stand strong for all of 13 years before it all came crashing down under the combined weight of all of our enemies. It's hard to be the king. And it's hard to keep the barbarians at bay. It takes a lot of luck. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of teamwork. And unfortunately, I think the high cost of that civil war just prevented us from doing that. Some of you out there are going to blame Doge for auditing the military, but I don't know. I kind of think he got rid of some waste and we got a much more honest experience out of this game. I really can't fault him for that. We still have 50,000, so I may go ahead and sit down and figure out what I can buy for 50,000 credits. But even with the losses suffered by the Tillians, man, I think we're going to be hard pressed to deal with that. They're probably still going to have something on the order of 10 companies of, let's just run the numbers here. If they've got 10 companies of leg infantry, it's going to cost us 45,000 credits to match that. That doesn't even include the tanks. That doesn't include, that doesn't give us any militia for defending other cities. If they split their forces, they're going to take Rafana. We may be in a situation where we've only got one force to stop them. We may have to give up this whole river valley. I guess where I'm going with this is, there's really only one thing left to check, and that's for a miracle. There is a 4% chance that a campaign-ending situation happens, and I got the 6, which isn't good enough. But for the record, I think we talked about this once or twice before. There is Jim includes a couple of, so for the first 20 years, that's us. There's a 1% chance that a Starmancer raid. Now, this is the space pirates come and they offer, hey, if you let us be a safe haven, let us boss you around. It's basically the Vikings showing up on your shore and saying, we'll actually pay you some Danegeld to give us a safe harbor, a safe retreat where we can repair our ships as we go gallivanting around the rest of the tattered remnants of the Kaizen Empire. Or there's a 2 in 6 chance, a 1 in 3 chance, the Empire returns and says, boy, you really made a hash of this there, Wargamius the Fourth. Maybe you shouldn't have decided to be 7 years old when you ascended the throne. Kind of interesting, right? There's a narrative just waiting to be told there about how the death of Wargamius III and the ascension of the Boy King is what sparked the Tillians to make their raid, and the Boy King just appointed his favorite television personality to be the leader of the country, and it just didn't work out very well. They didn't have the industrial capability to win a war of attrition against a neighbor. And maybe the Tillian Republic, maybe there's other probing attacks were just testing us. Maybe this is a large empire itself, and this planet where the Decapolis used to stand is soon to be the planet Tillia, as taking this resource-rich area down near the coast will open up shipping lanes on the water, and they'll be able to take over. They'll be able to drive these Puka. These guys. Remember, what is a Puka? These guys are they're not so great. They're like raiders. Maybe they can drive the gray hordes out of the plane, take over the planet, and challenge the crumbling Kaizen Empire. But we only played for 13 years. That's not a whole long stretch of time in the grand scheme of things, right? Remember how long it took the Roman Empire to fall. Remember how many centuries it took for Great Britain, the island of England, to go through so many revolutions. We don't know a whole lot about it because the Vikings burned most of those records, right? Those ages are dark to us. But kind of a fun exercise. As some of my friends have taken inspiration from this, they're actually putting together, they're going to use the same system. Here's an idea for you. It's not my idea. It's a couple of guys over on Elon Musk's House of Gentlemanly Discourse. They said, I'm going to use this to set up a chainmail campaign. I'm going to play this as a Napoleonic game. Well, that's easy enough, right? Infantry, cavalry, artillery. Oh, there's your 3-man arms, right? You could do this in a fantasy setting, throwing wizards around instead of air support. There's all kinds of different ways that you could reskin Hellfire and the Fall of Empire. Don't let the cover fool you. Jim Webster's, I wouldn't call it a magnum opus, but one of his oeuvre, and probably my favorite. It is a solo campaign, but it does generate a lot of 2-player battles, and we've seen and had a great deal of fun. I think what I'm going to do as Wargaming the 4th is take the last of my money, that 50,000 killer credits, and I'm going to go buy myself a little chateau somewhere in the core worlds, and we'll make hippos. Instead of a population of 10, it's 9, because I took the crown jewels and retired to a life of relative obscurity where I didn't have to worry about being assassinated. There are worse fates to be had. I feel bad for abandoning my people, but my neck feels a lot less stretched. So, hey, hope you guys enjoyed this long-running campaign, one of the longer ones we've done, and wrapping it up here, I think it makes for a nice little conclusion. Maybe you want to get yourself a copy. Maybe you don't, but at least now you know. And thanks again. I had a great time going through all of this with you, sitting down, doing a little quiet time by myself, running some numbers, experimenting with different ways of running battles outside of the whole miniature thing, just worrying about the logistics, just worrying about the politics, just letting the dice tell me what happens and trying to interpret them in a way that seemed interesting. Good fun. Highly recommended. Until next time, until our next campaign, I'm praying for you.